First-generation warfare is fought with sticks and stones, brute force, kinetic damage, and a show of force. But second and third generation warfare is fought with attrition, logistics, blitzkrieg, and disruption. In Afghanistan and Iraq, we fought fourth generation warfare, insurgency, terrorism, and psychological operations. With each successive generation, the lines between combatants and non-combatants begin to blur. Direct attrition becomes rarer, and tricks of deception and misdirection become all the more important. Today, we are in a fifth generation war, a war of information. Cybernetic tools such as AI, analytics, and information systems manipulate narratives, public perception, and sow discord. The line between the real and the artificial blurs, and entire battles are won without kinetic force. Information is the new oil, and the battlefield is everywhere and anywhere. Imagine if you viewed the ascendant right from mainstream figures such as MacIntyre and Candace Owens all the way to the outskirts of guys like Fuentes or Blizerian as an existential threat to your democratic project. You need to get ahead of it, and fast. But the censorship that you enjoyed during COVID is pretty much done with thanks to Elon Musk, and their narratives and cause are picking up steam. You could attempt to run containment manually and hire thousands of agents to identify threats and shut them down. But if the IRS's track record is any indication, it's a tough job even hunting down unpaid taxes, despite a $14 billion budget and 33 district offices. You need something better, something faster, and more discreet. But if we are in this fifth generation warfare, then how about a private company focused on deep analytics and intelligence augmentation? And say this company, hypothetically, had existing contracts with the CIA, DHS, NSA, the FBI, and a dozen other government agencies going back over a decade. And all the better if this hypothetical company was founded by an ostensibly right-wing billionaire who personally bankrolled high-profile politicians now ascending into the highest positions of political office in the land. Now, the reality is that none of this is actually hypothetical. The company that I'm describing is known as Palantir, named for the Seeing Stone in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. It was founded by the billionaire Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal. Thiel made JD Vance a household name through mentorship, his short venture capital career, and over $15 million invested in his Senate campaign. Thiel no longer runs Palantir. Instead, eccentric co-founder and CEO Alex Karp has turned it into a deadly tool in the Middle East and Europe for anti-terrorism efforts. Palantir uses massive amounts of data to find pre-crime via patterns, surveillance, and artificial intelligence. So today, we are diving into all of these important relationships between JD Vance, Peter Thiel, Ohio Governor, potentially, Vivek Ramaswamy, and the MAGA coalition. Can we still trust the plan? This episode is brought to you by our premier sponsors, Armored Republic and Reese Fund, as well as our Patreon members and our faithful donors. You can join our Patreon by going to patreon.com/Right Response Ministries, or you can donate by going to rightresponseministries.com/donate. You're not going to want to miss this episode.
Welcome, welcome.
We're so back.
What do we say?
And yet, I think it's so over.
It's over. I would say
so over.
it's
Yeah.
so over.
We're so back in terms of podcasting right now with this episode, but in the macro picture, it's so over. And trusting the plan. Here's the deal. We've said this for a while. We we were pro-Trump in his campaign, in the election. We're not shy about that. We were not quiet about that because the alternative was Kamala Harris, who is also a Zionist shill, and Trump is a Zionist shill. We have to be honest about that. Let's just be honest. I am grateful for many of the executive orders. I'm grateful for a lot of things that Trump has done, right? I mean, there were people praying outside of abortion mills that are now out of prison. That's a positive
Dozens
development. Yeah, there are dozens of us. No, but those dozens matter. I mean, that matters when you have women with cancer in their 70s who are literally going to die in jail apart from their husbands, and Trump brought them home. All the J6ers.
Yep.
I mean,
all of them too.
All of them. We have personal friends who had a 5-year sentence, who are now released, or maybe they were, stay at home. They weren't in jail, but they had this sentence hanging over their head, completely inhibiting their ability to provide for their families, all these things. And Trump put an end to that. But at the same time, we do need to be honest. Right now, he is on path to deport half of as many people as Obama deported.
To be fair on those deportations, a lot of that was turnaways, the way they kind of counted it to frame Obama as tough on immigration, tough on border. But still, practically speaking, there were millions and millions of turnaways, and Trump's numbers won't even equal those that Obama turned away.
Not even close. He needs to deport 30 to 40 million people, and he's on track for what, like 2 million, maybe?
We'd be lucky, I think, if we get that.
We'd be lucky. So we just need to be honest about these things. We're grateful for Trump. We absolutely think that Trump is better than the alternative. But if you're just sitting here, trust the plan, he's playing 4D chess, then you are going to end up with so many "I fell for it again" badges stuck to your chest, your forehead, that you're not even going to be able to see through to see the light of day. We need to be honest. Yep. We're grateful for Trump. I voted for Trump. I don't regret that vote. But the world that he's working toward is a world that if it's successful, I'm not even saying he personally is, but the guys that he has surrounding him, the world that they're working for, Palantir, these guys, outskirts,
and especially JD Vance as the younger, seen as successor.
Right, seen as a successor. I like JD Vance. I love having the vice president tweeting from the White House about the Order of Morris. These are positive developments. We're grateful for that. But we need to be honest that JD Vance is bankrolled by Peter Thiel, who is a gay Jew.
He's not Jewish, actually, but he is a gay man.
We'll see.
Spiritually.
Spiritually, he's Jewish. But he's not. We're talking about your MAGA, conservatives who are not conservative by any standard that would have existed even just 20, 30 years ago, and who are working on facial recognition and all these kinds of things. If you ever watched, with Tom Cruise, The Minority Report, where they're trying to stop crime before it takes place, but the big ethical question is, would this crime have even taken place? Are we arresting innocent people? The anti-Semitism laws against anti-Semitism, all of these things, these are massively concerning for anybody who is a true blue, red-blooded, America first Christian patriot. And if you don't see this as a looming threat, then you're naive.
Yeah.
So, Wes?
Yep. Yeah, the big takeaway from this, so I'm not going to come out here. I mean, we did an election live stream. We were cheering. We were excited about it. This is not us coming out here about 5-6 months since that election going, wait. We came across new information. It was all bogus. We rescind our support. That's not what we're saying. We're simply saying there was a fight then, and there really was. And a fight that was years long, but now a new fight has come, and we're defining a new future. So we took that way. We took that route. But now within it again, we have a set of choices laid out. And really in this case, it's not even us, but it's the man JD Vance. JD Vance's story, whether he likes it or not, is going to be the story of America in 2030. What route does he take? Who does he feel the greatest allegiance to? Just to give a little bit like a teaser ahead of it, a big one is going to be India. India as an ascendant superpower, India with a lot of personnel that can be imported for our purposes, for work and for visas and for manpower and everything like that.
But displacing our own native people.
But he's married to a woman who is Indian, who seems wonderful.
I'm sure she's a wonderful
But his kids are half American and half Indian. And so even in decisions relating to India, that literally some of that relates to the grandchildren, the cousins, the relatives of JD Vance's own children. So JD Vance stands at a crossroads. the men who bankrolled him, the men who made him who he is, their interests, their goals, their aspirations.
Right. Am I loyal to Peter Thiel and Palantir, or am I loyal to the American people? Am I loyal to my in-laws? That's tough. Am I loyal to my in-laws and to my children's cousins, or am I loyal to the American people?
Yep.
And if we don't recognize these difficulties and challenges that he's going to be facing, then again, we're being naive just to say, oh my goodness, you guys are conspiracy theorists. You know, well, for one, the conspiracy theorists are batting it like 1,000% right now.
Right.
So let's show a little respect that has
Put
been
some respect on my name.
Yeah, that has been rightfully earned by the conspiracist over the last 5 years. And then number two, again, we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yep.
Right. So like, we're not sitting here saying, oh man, this is actually even worse. You know, we should have voted for Kamala, you know, like, no, if Kamala had been elected, then we would have 30, 40, 50 million more.
We'd be looking like Canada right
immigrants into the country, and we would never stand a chance at winning.
Plus
again.
all the problems we're about to describe of JD Vance.
Plus
so it's
all
not
of
this set of problems that maybe we could deal with and it'd be easier.
Yeah. Right.
All of the problems we're saying here compounded with another 30 to 40 million people.
Correct. Right. Correct. So we don't. So it's both and. It's not either or. A Trump victory staved off a little bit of the threat temporarily.
Yep.
Trump is not the savior. He does not solve the problem. It bought us a little bit of time for us to maybe have a fighting chance. Whereas Kamala, it would have been over right there. So that is a cohesive, consistent view of things. So we're saying Trump winning the election that was the best outcome that we could hope for, and we're happy for it. And now the work begins. There's still a lot more work to be done.
Yes. So let's run through JD Vance as a biography. So probably a lot of you read, or at the very least you watched Hillbilly Elegy. I read the book. I enjoyed it very much. But JD Vance is not that old. So JD Vance is 40 years old. He's from Ohio, which, I mean, already right there, red flags. You should be, I don't know, Ohio. But he's from Ohio, and he grew up very, very, very poor. So he's a classic son of the hillbilly, the Appalachians, the hill people, an old Irish Scots descent, hardy people, but a bit of a low-class brawler people. And his ascendance to fame, we don't look at it, and we're about to play a clip kind of describing some of his professional career. But it's very interesting because he just arrives on the scene. So this is not a guy that in high school and then through college and then law school in the early parts of his career that was all ascendant during that time, that had been building a name for himself for decades. This is a guy that nobody knew about 5 years ago. Now, to be fair, Joel, nobody knew your name, most certainly not my name 5 years ago. None of that is inherently bad. But when you start to look at money involved, we talk about information warfare. When you look at money and you look at narratives, when you put those pieces together, you begin to say, what's being hoisted upon me, is what's being put on me, is this something organic? Is this a guy that genuinely has all of these attributes, and so I'm supporting him? Or is this something maybe that somebody wanted, somebody was willing to pay for, something with power, somebody with power was putting there? So JD Vance grows up very poor, who joins the Marine Corps. He was not an infantryman, nor I don't think he's ever publicly made the claim, but he was on
He's
the
not like
press
Tim
side of
Walz.
things.
He's not like, it's not stolen valor.
Nope.
So he didn't claim to be in combat.
Nope, he didn't. He was basically on the press side of things. So there's Marines that work on photography, that work on media. That's where he worked at. It's a pretty chill job. He was a Marine. I'm a Marine. Semper Fi. That's great. But I mean, this is nothing, again, like that he was a lieutenant, that he was an officer, that he was distinguished in combat. So he does a career, a short stint in the military, in the Marines, served honorably, gets out, and goes to law school. From law school, he then goes on and he works at just a handful of venture capital firms. Now, venture capital is not easy to get into. Venture capital is not something, you trip, I stumbled, $170,000 salary annually. Venture capital is very hard to break into. If you'd have to do work in investment banking or work in type of consulting and use that. Typically what guys will have to do is work in those things and then use that as a springboard.
Or have connections.
To what?
Or have connections from the beginning.
Or have
through
connections.
Your family. Yep.
It's just, you don't break into it easy.
Yep.
Right.
But during law school, JD Vance makes a connection to Peter Thiel. Let's go ahead and play this news clip, Nate. I just want to hear from someone else, really describing then what kind of became of his venture capital career.
JD Vance made his name in VC. That's venture capitalism. He says he launched businesses specifically to help families like his back home. But those who knew him say his career wasn't much to write home about. Vance spent less than 5 years as a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, moving between 3 different firms and pouring money into one big investment, a company that went bankrupt. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, one former colleague who worked with Vance during his stint at a firm owned by Peter Thiel, his big political backer, claims they never even saw Vance in the office. But he has leaned into this part of his bio on the campaign trail, the successful venture capitalist. And tonight he returned to Silicon Valley for a fundraiser at the private home of a cryptocurrency executive. Joining me now to discuss, Teddy Schleifer, who covers campaign finance for the New York Times, and Brian Schwartz, CNBC political finance reporter. Brian, here's the thing. Less than 5 years, not even as a venture capitalist, just working in the industry, okay? He did not have some big baller VC career we're talking about. So what is the success story that should make him worthy of being our vice president, right? He didn't have a big booming business career. He didn't have a long political career. So what's he selling us?
Well, I mean, what he's selling you is that short-lived career, and he's being able to take that story and leverage that for relationships that have been helping him his political career for years. You talk about Peter Thiel. This is somebody who put millions of dollars behind his run for Senate. Thiel also put money behind, Blake Masters when he went up against Mark Kelly and lost. But, JD Vance was his guy and continues to be his guy in a way. And so how many years he's been doing this, and I know that I've read the Journal story, and how, I think I mentioned, as he said, that, somebody who talked to the Journal said he didn't even see Vance in the office and when he worked at the firm that Thiel founded. I mean, so, at the end of the day, however long he was there, how little time he might have been working, how much time he was working as a venture capitalist, he's been able to leverage those relationships. And I think that's also the reason why he's in Silicon Valley tonight, Stephanie.
And that's the question, why? If he didn't have some big, giant, successful career, why exactly is he able to leverage those relationships? What do those people know about him? What can they control in him that they can get? Teddy, you've written a lot about this. And one of the companies he founded, APP Harvest, was sued by its investors just months after Vance left the board because he was running for Senate. And they sued the company because they claimed they were misled. That company went bankrupt last year.
Not very successful. So 2013, he graduates from law school. 2016, he writes Hillbilly Elegy. It's 2017 to about 2021 that he runs this app or runs this business. $340 million in debt is what they ended with and went bankrupt. So this is after he leaves the board. He goes on to serve as senator. But all through this time, this is just objective information. This is well documented. And none of this necessarily to be, it's not moral sin to fail to start a company. It happens. None of this is just
people fail.
He's dumb. Why couldn't he do this?
But usually people don't fail upwards. So we're not saying he's a bad guy or immoral because he wasn't successful as a VC. But what we are saying is, how come a particularly ungifted VC who fails to that magnitude and doesn't have really any success in that realm?
I don't know about you, but I've never failed to the tune of, I don't know, $340 million in debt.
It's quite a failure. Yeah. So what we're saying is not like, oh, he did this thing and it's terribly immoral. We're not saying that he even ripped these people off or that he knew that something was going to happen and the whole thing was a sham. We're not calling him, for instance, I'll put it into perspective. We're not saying that JD Vance is the same as Vivek Ramaswamy.
Right.
Vivek Ramaswamy, quite literally, him and his family, has ripped people off with pharmaceuticals.
A drug, an Alzheimer's drug that he because what happens
that
is
he
these
knew
molecules
was not successful.
Exactly. These molecules, what will happen with them is you'll try them out and people will try them for different things. They have very little promise. You pick one up for $1 million and what you're hoping for is that you get something and it's somehow like in a clinical trial, early phase is a breakout.
It's
and
like buying
you get great
at
valuation.
Walmart packets of Pokemon cards and you're hoping
literally
for that Charizard,
But imagine you took that card and you didn't and you knew it was junk, but you hyped it up, I don't know, with your mom.
Imagine that you opened the packet, you looked inside, you knew that it was a bunch of Pikachus,
a
bunch of junk, and then you sealed the package back up, and then you started selling it at a premium.
Well, that's what he did. That's how he made millions of dollars on a failed biotech, and now we can't get him out of public life. Literally just scammed his way. Probably to governor of Ohio.
Probably going to win, that just shows you the people of Ohio.
Is there election this year? Is it this year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So anyway, so Ohio's not doing great. And Vivek is...
And hold on to Vivek in your mind. Ohio, Vivek, all of that.
So
We're going to come back
Vivek
to it
really
later.
is a criminal. I mean, he's selling snake oil, and so he really is bad news. Let's be charitable. In the case of JD Vance, he's doing his job. He's not being explicitly
But to be
nefarious.
fair, people
and
at the
he's just
Capitol firm,
not good at it.
they're saying like, we didn't even see him at the office.
Right. Okay. So maybe he's not doing his job. But
Who
my
knows
point
what he
is,
was doing,
At
is the
best,
point.
he just kind of sucks at his job. At worst, as far as we can tell, at worst, he's lazy and is just not doing the job, and that's why it fails. It still puts him in a separate, completely distinct category from Vivek, who actually did his job really well, but his job was to scam people and to rip them off. So we're
Not beating any stereotypes there.
not helping the stereotype for his people, which is not Americans. So all that being said, JD, we're not putting him in that category, but this is what we're getting at. This is the question that we're raising: is people fail all the time, and it doesn't make them criminals. It doesn't make them immoral. Sometimes people just aren't particularly good at something. They try something out and they fail, but it's usually worth a second glance when someone fails and is not just partially, but immensely rewarded. That their failure is immensely rewarded with, opportunity like a senator, and then that gets rewarded further, into vice president, especially in the case of JD Vance, who was, on record, a never Trumper.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like he was loyal from the beginning. Like people get upset about Paula White. Paula White is a heretic, right? Nobody's disputing that. And I don't want a word of faith, prosperity gospel peddler heretic, and a woman to boot, who's the head of some faith program for the White House. So no, I don't like that. But this is what I will say about Paula White. When you're wondering, well, how come Paula White has this opportunity and not this reform minister, blah, blah, blah. Well, because the reform minister that you wish was in that position has been counter-signaling Trump for the last 8 years. Right. Whereas Paula White, what I can say of her is she was loyal. Not loyal to the Lord Jesus Christ and sound doctrine from the Word of God, unfortunately, but she was a loyal Trump supporter from the beginning. So, and what does Trump do? Well, we kind of know this about Trump at this point. Trump is loyal to those who are loyal to him. If you don't like Trump, Trump doesn't like you. If you like Trump, Trump likes you. But in the case of JD Vance, it's not like Paula White. JD Vance was not this longtime Trump supporter that from the beginning could see the writing
He was
on the wall.
neocon through like the 2010s.
Exactly.
There's articles we have from him.
Yeah, Trump.
He's nothing special.
Vance was not sitting there, as Trump's going down the golden escalator, and he was a true believer from the beginning.
Yeah.
That's not who Vance is. So
Nor was he based. It wasn't like I don't like Trump because I'm
Correct.
more based than him.
Correct.
He was a neocon, just
So
the
how
average
is
run
it
of the
that
mill.
somebody fails as a VC, gets rewarded with senator, and then is a never Trumper, neocon, who all of a sudden is able to rebrand and is in Trump's good graces?
For the record, there are 4 people serving in Trump's administration currently, one of them a cabinet member, who were never Trumpers before.
Yes.
Yep.
So Trump does have a bit of an effect on people it seems like he is loyal to the people that are loyal to him, but he also likes turning people who are opposed to him to his side.
Trump is too forgiving.
And
sometimes.
well, I don't know. It might be forgiving, but it's also kind of I turned this guy, and now he's
I
part of
see.
my.
Maybe
It's funny you
Yes,
mentioned that
yes.
because in 2021,
a point of pride with his
Thiel,
conversion.
Vance and Trump meet and smooth things
Yep.
over, and then comes the Senate run.
Yep.
So he
Right.
fails upward. This book, Hillbilly Elegy, it is a well-written book. It's an engaging book. It's a wonderful memoir. How organic its success is, who knows? Like schemes to buy books, because venture capital is not going to make you a made man, like nationally.
For me,
with the knowledge,
even
and the name
aside from the
recognition
book,
nationally.
what's particularly suspicious is Netflix picking it up and doing a movie. So it's like, since when does Netflix want people to think fondly of flyover America,
Of hillbillies.
of predominantly white?
I was about to say, if they're black
salt-
hillbillies, we might have something
exactly.
here.
Like if Netflix picked up a series and was like, we want to show you how wonderful the people of Atlanta are. I could see Netflix doing a film on that. I could see them doing several. But we want to show you how Appalachia is just a crown jewel of America and a story of rags to riches, and in a way that even positively, in many ways, kind of in an endearing fashion, kind of seeks to redeem the mom, and and like she did the best she could, and she came around. There's redemption at the end of this story. Like, it's one thing for Vance to write it, and maybe it's just organically successful.
It was partly ghostwritten for sure.
Okay.
So he has help writing
Most
it.
books are, though, at that level.
But it's another thing for it to be picked up by woke Netflix.
To be wildly successful, bestseller, and then
to be picked up
Netflix.
and become wildly successful in a way that gets people to positively think about the heartland of America. That doesn't seem like Netflix MO. But is there something behind the scenes, like putting a little bit of pressure or giving a little bit of money or these kinds of things so that there's an incentive? And that's the question that we're raising today.
We're not saying definitively, oh yeah, the call went out, you need to make a documentary, you need to make a movie about this guy. But we're saying as all these pieces line up, there's tons and tons of people, tons of lawyers, tons of venture capitalists, tons of authors for sure. None of them, even with much greater success, much greater ability, none of them attain to then being eligible for starting and running a successful Senate campaign. This is in 2022. The largest donation to date in any U.S. Senate campaign stands as Peter Thiel's $15 million. And it was a close Senate race in Ohio.
Right.
So by the skin of his teeth, with that $15 million from Peter Thiel, this is 3 years ago.
Right.
Like, this is not like 10 years ago he entered the Senate. He's been working hard since then. We're talking like
Organic
one
growth
term
over the course of, a decade and a half. That's not what we're saying.
Nope. So then he gets onto Trump's short list. And to give credit to his abilities, JD is a great speaker.
He is.
Like, he did really well in the debate.
He's really sharp.
We were watching it together. He did a great job. I think he reads and listens to a lot of our guys. Obviously, some of them, like Curtis Yarvin, they're not our guys, but on the right, on X. So he listens to a lot of our guys. He's familiar with the talking points. He's a great speaker and a good politician. But what we want to get across is that you need to start having some suspicion when you see people like this. I didn't know who he was 3 years ago. Oh, millions and millions of dollars helped make him here. And he's never been successful there, successful there, successful there. And now he's literally a heartbeat away from the presidency. And we don't know much about this guy. And he hasn't proven himself. There's no decade we can look at. There's no thing that we can see that he built. We've got a book, which, as you mentioned, Michael, it's, partially ghost written. That happens a lot. Like, we've got a book, we've got a Netflix special, we've got Losing Money.
Right.
And we're at the second most powerful position in the world. Like, at least Trump, you can point to his towers, you can point to his casinos, you can point to an immense amount of wealth, of 60-year track record.
And he was
of
in
success.
he was in the public arena for decades. Everybody knew who Trump was.
They liked him until he ran.
Right, exactly. But in the case of JD Vance, it's the connection with Peter Thiel that's massively concerning. But in addition to that, also his wife, who, again, we don't have anything against his wife. She really does seem like a wonderful woman. But there is going to be some element of natural affections towards her family, and that's outside of America. It's hard to be America first when you marry an immigrant and they have still family members who live in another country. It's just hard.
It is. And you see his kids, even he took a visit recently to visit the prime minister.
Who dresses them up.
And they're dressed
as
like
Indians.
that. And now, again, they have family and relatives there. So in the sense of natural affections, you can understand that sense of, not maybe loyalty is not the right word, but like, this is somewhat of their lineage, of their legacy. So that's not picking on his kids and dragging them in and picking on him for that. But it's the dynamic that you have to be aware of, as he is literally front runner for president of the United States in less than 3 years from now.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Right.
All right, let's go to our first commercial break, and then we'll come right back.
What if your family's financial strategy was built on more than just numbers? What if it was built on scripture? At Private Family Banking, we believe managing wealth is more than just good planning. It's a God-given privilege and responsibility. In Genesis and Deuteronomy, and all the way into the New Testament, God calls us to be fruitful, wise, and faithful with what He provides. We help Christian individuals, families, and small businesses grow, protect, and pass on wealth anchored in timeless biblical principles to the glory of God in the advancement of His kingdom. Schedule your free discovery call today at liberationeconomy.com.
America is a country that was founded for the purpose of allowing Christians to do their duty before God and not to have their consciences ruled by the doctrines and commandments of men. Reese Fund exists in order to see the 10 Commandments properly applied, not just as a plaque on the wall, but to actually be used in business as though they're commandments from God that we're supposed to obey. Our goal is to find businesses and to buy them and to build them up. We want to find manufacturing businesses and use them to make sure that we can maintain our capacity to do things here. Reese Fund, Christian capital, boldly deployed.
All right. So Peter Thiel, we've hit on that connection a ton. Peter Thiel, what's the deal? Why is this guy so scary?
Nice rhyme.
Peter Thiel is actually, it's funny enough, he is a gay man, and that's always going to color his
Allegedly
outlook.
Jewish.
Spiritually Jewish.
Spiritually Jewish, yeah.
No, he actually claims to be a evangelical Christian.
Oh, okay,
We would,
all right.
we would of course reject that because he's holding to a lifestyle.
Right.
But he claims to be a Christian, very pro-Western values. But Peter Thiel in 2003 helped co-found a company called Palantir. We mentioned them earlier. Now, to start off with, Palantir, it's very easy for it to become the boogeyman, right? So it's Palantir, and people attribute all sorts of things, this, that, or the other. So I want to be careful, and I want to give a disclaimer from the outset that I'm going to do my best to rely on what's objectively out there. So this is the words of the founders, the words of the company itself, not to really get schizophrenic, right? Like Charlie and It's Always Sunny Philadelphia. I'm like, I'm telling you, here. But I'm going to, at the end of the day, there's some speculation of the link. That's what we're doing. We're looking into the future and saying, we see these things right now. Here's what they could become. You need to be forward thinking. You need to be forward looking. You need to be anticipating. If all you're doing is reacting, you are losing. If all you're doing is reacting, what's happening? Oh, what's the next play? What is the enemy going to pull? I don't know. No, you need to be looking forward. And if anything, taking initiative. That's what we're doing right now. Hey, right now, of course, Palantir is not targeting, well, of course, that we know of. Palantir is not targeting Christian nationalists and anti-Semitism here in the United States with the privacy that the Patriot Act really rolled back, the right to privacy that Americans have. We don't know, and we don't think that is doing.
Are you going to
that.
explain that targeting thing a little bit? Are you going to talk about what Palantir does? Because if not, that comes out of left field, what you just said
absolutely.
there. Okay.
So we're not making the claim that that's happening now, but it could. And there's someone very powerful who is at a certain level is going to have a certain affinity and favoritism, rubber stamp for it.
Towards Palantir, namely
towards Palantir,
JD Vance.
towards
So you're
Peter
talking
Thiel.
about JD Vance very realistically could be, the leader of the free world, and that he would, have every incentive you could imagine to either support or, the most charitable explanation we give, at least at minimum, turn a blind eye towards Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, Palantir. That, as far as we know, public facing, we don't have any definitive proof at this point that Palantir is being used and weaponized in an information warfare, 5th generation warfare against Christian nationalists and anti-Semitism here in America with Native Americans.
In Europe, we do,
and
I'll get to that in a minute.
In Europe, we do. So in other places, that's happening right now. It's geared, against terrorism, and it's geared against other things in other places. But the idea that they have the technology and easily could gear that towards American citizens on the right wing, and that they would have their guy that they bankrolled, who is the president of the United States, that's entirely possible to turn a blind eye or even politically support it. If
Same
Christians
thing with a
aren't looking at
potential-
this with some level of suspicion, then again, you're being foolish.
Same thing with the potential governor in Ohio. That would be very favorable too, as you support his campaign and help him to reach that tier. So JD Vance, Peter Thiel, the other co-founder of Palantir is a man named Alex Karp. He's a Jewish billionaire, very eccentric guy, not
There's
married.
the Jewish piece. I felt it.
Somewhere in there, there's going to be. I want to play, this is actually from a recent documentary. So he's gotten a lot of flack for all the things we're going to talk about. And I want you to kind of see some of the hubbub around him as people are saying, what does this software do and what can it do? Because software does not have the same scaling problems that human, tracking, targeting does. At the human level, go ahead.
I was just going to say, let me say this real quick. This isn't provable, but I think it's a pretty good working theory. All the videos that surfaced over the last, couple of years of lights flashing in the sky and things
right,
like that over the ocean or over Montana, these kind if I had to bet, Palantir. Just because of their...
Sure, you were going to say mermaids.
Because of their... No. If it was in the water, maybe. Although the Book of Enoch talks about sirens that, some of them had wings, some of them could fly, so maybe. But my point is that it's not just software that they're into, but there's a ton of technology with drones that Palantir is directly involved in.
Because the future of warfare is not autonomous. It's not, we got to get boots on the ground. We've got to get machine guns. The future is drones. The future is information. The future is cybernetics. So let's play this trailer. This is literally about Alex Karp, Palantir, everything surrounding him.
The start of Palantir is basically 9/11. Pentagon and the CIA said, the terrorists, they're mad. So to catch them, we'll open the door just a little bit for the crazy people. Let some crazy people in.
Do you know who Palantir is?
I do.
Is it actually true that you had to find Osama bin Laden?
We obviously don't talk about our successes or failures.
This CEO, Alex Karp, he has no scruples.
Alex Karp, Palantir have supported General McMaster on the front line and many of the special operations people in America and around the world.
Die Firma Palantir ist mit Abstand die größte kommerzielle Überwachungsfirma der Welt, die solche Produkte anbietet.
Die werden an dem Sternenhimmel, an dem schon Facebook, Google und Apple sind, durchaus sein.
Es begann so, dass ein 17-Jähriger angekündigt hat, dass er den amerikanischen Präsidenten töten möchte.
If your face is ever on that screen, on the Palantir screen, you're going to be guilty of something.
We're not allowing any media.
We are going to be the most important software company in the world.
We kill people based on metadata.
Our product is used on occasion to kill people.
Ja, und jetzt machen Sie irgendwelche verkorkste Filme über mich. Deswegen bist du da. Ja, das musst du ja wissen. Ja.
So the product can be used with drone warfare occasionally to kill people while they're sleeping in their beds at night. It's no big deal, guys. It's no big deal. Let's not be, conspiratorial. No, it is a little bit of a big deal. And I just wanted to mention this real quick, and then I'm going to hand it right back to Wes because he's done a lot of research on this topic. And I know he's got a lot of insightful comments that need to be heard. But as we're airing this episode, it is Monday, May 5th, the year of our Lord 2025, which just so happens to be Q1 for 2025, Q1 earnings for the company Palantir. And I'm going to call it. I haven't looked. Okay. So I haven't looked. So this is just straight up concluding right now. Intuition. Palantir, over the weekend rose up to the 120s in terms of their stock price. They capped out with a lot of the Mag 7 and other tech companies during like December, January, and some of them February. Palantir was February after their Q4 earnings earlier this year, and capped out for Palantir. I think the all-time high was 125, and they were as low as like I think low 20s in 2024 during like the summer months.
I remember for years people were like, Palantir, it's going to break out,
and it didn't, and then it did,
and I didn't believe them, and then one day when it broke out,
And so Palantir in like the summer of 2024, less than a year ago, I think it was like $20, $18, got pretty low, maybe $22, and then soared with what is that, like a 6x multiple, all the way up to 125, all-time high in February when their Q4 earnings came out. So February this year, Q4 for 2024. And my prediction, and I haven't looked at it, but as the earnings call is happening right now, my prediction is that Palantir will soar. I think it's actually possible that it soars all the way to 140, 150, 160. I think 160 by perhaps maybe it fades up, that it jumps at earnings to 140 and then fades up to 160 by the end of this week. But my point is, you're talking about massive growth. So even from just an economic stock standpoint, this is unusual what's happening.
They went public and it was 2020. And they have a couple different divisions. So they have stuff that's related to healthcare. They've been expanding their offerings. So someone you could look at it and say like, wait, this doesn't seem like a defense and a counterterrorism project. That it's one wing of it. The CTO, I think the chief technical officer, he was just on Sean Ryan's show the other day explaining like, because that's where they got their start. So 2003 they form. Get this, they're founded in part with an investment from Intel Q, the CIA venture capital fund. So you have the intelligence community from the beginning invested in Palantir, invested in making it a thing. It becomes the software that they use a ton in the Middle East because what it can do.
Who uses in the Middle East?
The U.S. uses in the Middle East. So the U.S. uses it on the ground in the Middle East because here's the problem. You can have tons and tons of data, but you need to be able to interpret it. And human beings are simply not fast enough to do that. So Palantir, they've been in the game of AI and interpretation, not for 3 years, not since, ChatGPT came about. They've been in the game for over 20 years. And so they've used on the ground for decades there in the Middle East. And what they were able to generate was predictive policing. So for example, with ISIS especially, they would predict, for example, terrorist attacks. They would be able to triangulate the data, interpret movements with facial recognition. So we've got these individuals that have been traced to and marked, and they actually stopped different ISIS attacks on different buildings that they were going to bomb and to blame on Americans and things like that. More recently, it's been deployed. Israel's used it for Hamas. I watched a video where they're talking about how everyone that they identify through facial recognition, so they triangulate it, they have these individuals, they're assigned a score between 1 and 100. That score is based on their likelihood to engage in terrorist activities.
Interesting.
Well, they went to this place that is known to be the home of X, Y, and Z. They purchased this. They made a donation to this type of fund. So we've got them pegged at an 83, and it literally generates, right now it's generating for the Israeli military kill lists. Lists of people that they've triangulated through their software, take these guys out. And then you combine that with a drone. We've got a facial recognition match. We've got a propensity to terrorism. Do we make the call? And all that's autonomous. None of that is a human being looking through it. They have a false positive rate, so falsely identifying a risk. I mean, this is women and children too. Like this is identifying, does this woman have this propensity? Would this kid potentially be a terror bomber, be a suicide bomber? So they've got all of this. This is happening in the Middle East. This is known. And then recently, and this is where the connection starts to become to the US. You have a powerful software, and I get that you have to do that when you're in a place like the Middle East where how do you roll in there? How do you police? How do you do well? How do you combat insurgency? That is one thing, and I don't know how you sort that out. But then in Europe, Alex Karp is on record bragging that our software stopped the rise of the far right in Europe. That our software, he says, the reason you're not goose-stepping right now, fascism, is because of Palantir. And so what they've done is they begin to deploy it. Just today in Germany, the AfD, that's the political party, the Alternative for Deutschland. In Germany, there's not two major political parties like we have here. There's 5, and they kind of share coalition governments. And the AfD has been the ascendant kind of right wing. Now, literally, the head of it is still, if I remember correctly, a lesbian woman. Like, we are not talking like this is your based, your based right wing movement and on. No, it's pretty normie right wing. But even normie right wing.
But by their standards, it's far extreme.
By their standards, it's literally Hitler 2.0.
Yeah.
Just today, German intelligence agency targeted them, put them on a list as a terrorist or some type of...
The whole political party?
The whole political party as an organization that could be targeted. So then you take those type of designations.
What do you mean by targeted?
That remains to be seen. That's exactly... This is the problem with all of it. We don't know. And public-private partnerships... Like the U.S. government couldn't do this because we have freedom of information. We have right to privacy from the government. So you can go and you can request, what files do you have on me? Freedom of information request. What about this? What about that? And they have to give it to you. But private companies don't have to do that. So the government can take a $500 million contract. They can give it over here to a private company. The private company does all that they do with all the data.
Dirty work.
The government, when you ask them, well, what did you do? What data did you take?
Nothing.
We paid X, Y, and Z for a contract related to this. They legally don't have to disclose anything. And that's what 5th generation warfare is. We're not in a war where we got our guns. How do guns help you when drones can bomb your entire property?
Do you remember that video? I think it was early in the Ukraine war where there was that man who was running around a bombed out tank and there was a drone flying above him that was just tracking him. And he was just trying to hide. He was trying to get away. And it just kept seeking him out. And it got him. It was kind of a graphic and horrific video, but
Right. So we're all like, we're Americans. We have our guns. We have our Literally
so
guns,
important.
like-
That's so important for Americans to realize. Like responsible gun ownership, I think is vitally important. And honestly, like there's so many reasons. I wrote this book, Fight by Flight. There's so many reasons to leave your blue state, especially if you're a husband and a father. When you think of economic policies, when you think like, do I pay state tax? Does that state, morally, does that state tax, does a portion of it go to Planned Parenthood? Am I literally paying for children to be murdered? There's all these questions, and then of course just economically, like the cost of living. Do I have to put my kids in public school because it requires a 2-income household, because just the cost of living is far too high. So there's all these things. But another one is, in terms of gun ownership, can I protect my family when we're out in public legally? Like, can I conceal carry? Those kinds of laws are vitally important with massive moral implications for fathers and husbands. And so there's a ton of reasons, to leave blue states, and there's a ton of reasons to be grateful for our Second Amendment rights and to practice them. But let's be honest, all that protects you from the original intent of the Second Amendment was to protect you from the government. However, all it protects you from these days, or potentially can protect you from, is just deranged private citizens, that would show up on your doorstep of your home, and like a home invasion, or you're having a family day at the park and some, crazy person, is threatening your wife and threatening your children. And so you're able to protect them. And so gun rights matter for that reason. And it matters enough to where, like I already said, I would consider very carefully where I live based off of gun rights alone, not to mention all the other things that I previously mentioned already. But when you're talking about protecting yourself and your family from the government, and especially, we're not even talking about that, but with 5th generation warfare, when you're talking about protecting yourself, not even from the government directly, but indirectly through private, contracts made with private companies that can glean intel on you and have a whole profile made up on you, and also have access to drone warfare, and your guns aren't going to save you. And it's important that Americans, not that they then overreact and disparage the Second Amendment rights, because they are important. But for us to be so foolish and naive to assume that because of the Second Amendment and because we live in a state like Texas and because you have 4 ARs in your home and your shotgun
10,000 bullets,
and you're 9 and you're 45 and all these, to think that this episode doesn't apply to me because I live on land and I had my homestead.
I live in this beautiful reserve called Ruby Ridge. It's pristine, it's beautiful. The government would never come here.
Yeah, the government will never come here. We're perfectly fine. Then you're an idiot.
Right.
You're an idiot.
Go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, this was a bit of a black pill to me in COVID because all of our talk of Second Amendment did nothing.
Right.
And I'm not saying I was advocating for armed rebellion. I was just saying the reality was having your gun, having your self-defense and your, concealed carry and all that. It did nothing against what they were using during COVID to control us.
That's right.
And I don't think the claim we're not making is we are a hop skipping away from, JD Vance locking into the control center and sending down drone strikes because you criticized Israel online. So that's not necessarily the claim. But you have a relationship with Peter Thiel, you have Alex Karp, you have Palantir, you have the software, you have the experience, and these guys are saying, we stopped the rise of the far right in Europe. We're the reason that fascism didn't come back. It's been deleted now, but a number of different individuals have referenced it. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting. It's been deleted because this is the kind of thing that Palantir works on. Even the archives, I tried to pull them and it wouldn't pull up the tweets. But I think there was at one point, Alex Karp said, my greatest fear is that Christian nationalists take me and throw me out of a window. Like, this is the thing that's going to happen to me. This is what I'm worried about. This is the CEO of Palantir.
Right.
Like, this is the dynamic. I'll get into here in this last segment some of the ways it can apply and what we're looking at. But it's not here yet that we know of today. Palantir is still small. It's not this be-all, end-all. What is it in Mission Impossible? God's Eye?
Yeah.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
This isn't God's Eye yet, but it could be.
But speaking of that, I was thinking about this because I've been thinking a lot about the interview that Tucker did with Catherine Fitz about the control nodes and everything that's
underground bunkers.
Yep. Everything that's being built to basically control people without them realizing that they're being controlled. And I just think it's interesting how many of the plots of Mission Impossible or James Bond type movies, you're kind of like, seems like what's actually going on.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Let's go to our last commercial break, and then we're going to come back with some practical applications. Running your business with purpose means looking beyond last month's numbers to next year's vision. Kaylee Smith offers CFO-level strategy scaled just for small businesses. At Midstate Accounting, she takes care of your compliance, bookkeeping, and tax returns while providing holistic advisory and fractional CFO services to help you steward your resources with a distinctly Christian perspective. Ready to align your finances with your future? Then call Kaylee Smith at 573-889-7278 for a free, no-obligation consultation. Mention the Right Response podcast to get 10% off your first 3 months. Prefer to explore online? Then you can visit midstateaccounting.net to learn more or schedule a call. Again, that's midstateaccounting.net. With Midstate Accounting, you'll plan for tomorrow while operating in faith today. So call Kaylee Smith at 573-889-7278. Again, that's 573-889-7278. Are you a Christian struggling to find companies that align with your values and beliefs? Well, then Squirrely Joe's has you covered for all your coffee needs. All of their coffee is hand-selected and roasted fresh every day by a family of fellow believers. Try them out and you'll savor exceptional coffee while knowing that your investment supports a company committed to following God's teachings and upholding truth and righteousness, ensuring that your hard-earned money contributes to the growth of God's kingdom. Stop giving your hard-earned dollars to pagans who support evil. Right Response listeners have access to an exclusive deal. Your first bag of coffee is free. All you have to do is cover the shipping. So head on over to squirrelyjoes.com/right response. Again, that's squirrelyjoes.com/right response to claim your first free bag of coffee today.
So to land the plane, what would it practically look like? Let's take, for example, the Christ is King report from the NCRI, the National Contagion Research Institute. It's a partnership with a couple other groups. Take a report like that, and it says we've done deep analytics and we've tied this phrase to extremist activity. Then what you could do is you could take Covenant Bible Church, for example. We live stream our services, our church, and you could look at the website and you could look at the live stream, and through facial recognition, you could pull out, hey, we've got about 45 different guys. And you take that and you go to somewhere like LinkedIn, you say, we've done deep analytic work. We're working to identify extremism. It's best if this would be paired with a false flag, for example, a bombing or a shooting. So we have this movement and these guys, so-and-so, they carried out a bombing, they carried out something terrible. And we've identified just a handful of individuals, and we're handing over this data to Facebook, and we're handing over this data to LinkedIn as Palantir. We're handing over this data to these job boards just for you to be able to take these individuals and make sure that they're not able to use your services. We're not throwing them in jail. We're not charging them. We're not harming their families. We've identified extremists and we've done this deep data analytics work. We've got some names. We've got some social security numbers for you. And then guess what? You have thousands of Christian men that are unable to hold jobs. Men that are unable then, because in the digital sphere, and we experience this with COVID, they can shut your voice down.
Yes.
At the end of the day, the platforms we're on, they could shut our voice down.
And your guns
you're beholden to
do
them.
nothing.
Your guns do nothing. Gab, love it, but like it's tough to actually get traction there for your message on some of these alternative ones. That's how you destroy an ascendant, growing right-wing movement. And we know the founders, the CEO of this company, for one, close relationship to the vice president, potentially the future president, an IOU of say $15 million, his entire career in the back pocket. Hey, we've got some trouble. We've got this anti-Semitism on the rise. We don't want to violate their rights as Americans. We just want to take some of these different platforms that are connecting them and fostering. Look at this report. Look at this deep data, fostering extremism, and we just want to make sure this message doesn't get out.
They held a Christ is King conference.
They held a Christ is King conference.
Yeah.
Here's everyone who's attended.
Exactly, and we saw we were able to hack into their registration. and get names of everybody who attended that conference.
Or even without it, all the pictures that people posted. We've
People
identified
posted pictures, and then Palantir facial recognition. Boom, we've got names, we've got social security numbers, and every single one of these people, we're now going to go in on X. We're going to go in on Facebook, LinkedIn, all those kinds of things. Like, we're going to make them unemployable. We're going to make them to where the algorithms now suppressing their free speech. We won't get them kicked off of the platform, but we'll just make sure that they're secluded into perpetual isolation. Nobody sees their tweets. Nobody sees their posts. This is real.
Right.
Don't forget,
nobody will bank you. Right. This happens to tons of guys.
Don't forget the trucker protests and those who donated to them. Right? Yes. This sort of thing has not. I'm not saying that was Palantir. I'm saying this sort of thing. Already has happened in our very recent past.
And none of it is illegal. Nothing is illegal about Palantir going to LinkedIn and saying, don't give this man a job. Nothing is illegal about X taking you offline. Like, none of this is illegal. And so don't despair, don't blackpill, but we need to pray, and you need to be working. So praying for JD Vance. He is the man with the choice in front of him. And I think the two paths will become clear as time goes on. Pray for him to have an endeared heart towards the Americans that he's the vice president of, that he represents, that even when he disagrees with them, and there's good signs, like getting that kid rehired at Doge. I think there's good signs that there's a war within him, but that his allegiance would be to the people and to say, even when I disagree with them severely, no, Peter, no, Alex, this is a step too far.
They have a right.
You can't do this.
They have a right.
They have a voice
to say these things.
They have a right. They have constitutional rights afforded to them. So pray, but then you have to build to be secure. Not in 15 years, 3.
That's the thing. That's the last thing we want to leave you with is we don't want you to despair. We don't want you to be discouraged, but we do want you to feel a sense of urgency, not fear. Be anxious for nothing, but with prayer and supplication, make your requests known to God. So pray first, but don't just pray. Pray and work. And you need to work like a madman. You need to work with fire under your feet, with an unstoppable sense, not of fear, but of urgency. You have 3 years. You have 3 years to fortify your family. You need to be working in such a way that you are able to store up reserves of wealth, of cash, of food, of these kinds of things. And
put jammers on your list, commercially available electromagnetic jammers for drones and stuff.
Can I ask this question? Why, if it's Vance who is potentially connected with Palantir, why are we saying 3 years?
Because in 3 years he could be president.
He'll just have more influence than he does now as the vice president.
Yeah, and then also just
Vivek as governor. So the thought is that Palantir would also build bigger facilities there in Ohio. So they bankroll.
But you don't think they'll be? I mean, you don't think Trump is sympathetic to them?
I think he's too busy.
Not to the same level. Right. No, I don't think they. I don't think they have claws in Trump at the same level that they do with Vance. Even though, and just again, hear us. We're not trying to be unhinged here. We're trying to paint a full picture, a reasonable picture. We like Vance in some ways even more than we like Trump. Trump was not posting about the Ordo Amoris, although he was Napoleon posting, and I appreciate that.
I love that.
Gotta love that. But like in terms of, if we're just saying in terms of like historic Christian doctrine, Trump's primary faith advisor is Paula White.
And a rabbi has been added to the Faith Council. Don't love it.
Of course. Whereas JD Vance, on the other hand, I have no doubt if I was sitting down with Trump and JD Vance right now and we're just talking theology, Vance would be able to track and Trump would be, what are you talking about? So Vance is, theologically, he is the superior. And I think he has more ties to Christian faith than Trump does. And so in many ways, we're grateful for Vance. And in many ways, he is our guy. He's reading, posts from guys on the ascendant right, guys in our camp. He's, even responding and retweeting at times. So in many ways, he is our guy. The problem is that there are other people who are not our guys, like Peter Thiel, like Alex Karp, and like the entire country of India, that he is beholden to. And to pretend
potentially
that he's
beholden.
He
has that tension.
He doesn't have to be. He can always just say, take a hike. He could just do the right thing. He could have the fortitude and the courage and the grit to simply say no. But we're just recognizing that the pressure is immense. The pressure is immense. And to assume that he's just going to do the right thing and tell all these people, very powerful people, to take a hike, would be naive on our part. So let's pray that he does the right thing.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, in addition to our prayer, let's work as though he's going to do the wrong thing.
Yep. Amen. So work hard, work in faith, but don't be naive. I trust the plan. It's all working out. It's all going good. It might not be. And the fight that has to happen is out of MAGA, out of the coalition that elected Trump. A true right-wing, we call it nationalist, Christian nationalist movement has to come out of that. There's no forming a new third party. There's not an alternative.
Right.
Out of the right wing that currently exists, there has to come a strong Christian, nationalist, patriarchal movement. So led by men, not by women. Something has to come out of there soon. And it needs to be sending people up in Congress. It needs to be sending people as advisors to the president, the vice president, people that are influential, that we have just, the clock is running out for that to emerge. And if it doesn't, they will take us because we are too small. They will sequester us, quarantine, and crush.
Yep. That's fifth generation warfare. It's the Anakin and Padme meme, where, you've got Anakin, and that's in this equation, that would be us. And we're saying to Padme, and that's your, MAGA hats on, the fell for it patches, across the chest. And we're saying, Trump is playing 40 chess. And she's like, yeah, like we're going to have a Christian nation? You're like, no, the 40 chess.
He's playing 40 chess.
The 40 chess that he might be playing is the 40 chess of kingmaker for Vance, and then Vance selling us out. And then all of a sudden the Christian nationalists are in jail.
And H-1Bs.
So we're not doubting 40 chess. We're just saying 40 chess is I
still doubt the 40 chess.
It's a two-way. 40 chess is a two-way street. It could be 40 chess for our benefit, or it could be 40 chess for, oh no, my goodness, what just happened? So thank you guys for tuning in. Be in prayer, be vigilant, be wise, be discerning, but also do not be given to fear. We appreciate you guys, and we appreciate all that you do for this ministry. Ministries like ours, we don't want to have the Elijah complex and, we're the only ones left, and the Lord, has always reserved for himself a remnant for times such as these. But I would say that although we're not the only ones left, it is a bit of slim pickings. And so if you could find it in your heart, you're willing to pray for us, encourage us. And for some of those of you who are able to do so, if you're able to even support us financially by giving a tax-deductible gift, we would be immensely grateful for your charitable giving and your generosity. You can go to rightresponseministries.com/donate. Again, that's rightresponseministries.com/donate to make a charitable gift today. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.